Hi, my name is Garrick Pohl. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ZipMeds. When Dana and Carl reached out to me, I was really appreciative because I was thinking as I came here today that 3 years ago I never would have imagined doing what I do now, and it's really because of crowdsourcing. In fact, when they suggested that we call my presentation "Taking on the Goliaths," I had to chuckle because that's exactly what our investors have asked us to do. They say, we want you to be the next FedEx, we want you to be the next UPS, but we're going to give you 1/10 of 1% of their budget to do it. And we'll see where we can go with this, but we're really happy with our early results and seeing that it doesn't take the same capital structure that it once did to roll out local delivery in markets around the world. So in short, ZipMeds is a network of couriers and courier companies that work together, collaborate to provide the most efficient and affordable same-day delivery possible. So I think somebody else mentioned this morning that we're starting to see crowds within crowds or smaller crowds, and that's really what happens on the ZipMeds platform. So we're certainly a destination for couriers who want to take on some extra work, but we're also an enterprise solution for courier companies. What we've realized, like many of you have, is that there's opportunities now to disintermediate certain players within the industry. And so what we've done is we've said, let's automate all of those operations of a courier company that's labor intensive. Let's eliminate that overhead. Let's drive down the cost of local delivery. And then let's allow those courier companies to leverage a lot of the independent contractors on the platform to really be able to collaborate in providing the most affordable same-day delivery options possible. I don't know if many of you had a chance to look at the Crowdsourcing.org site. I thought there was a really great video there that kind of showed the historical context of crowdsourcing, so this inspired me to kind of talk about the history of local delivery. So about 100 years ago, we had a startup in Seattle called UPS, and at the time, they were doing a lot of messaging, type of things. I have a letter I need to get across town, and what happened? They started to struggle because of technology. Both the automobile and the telephone really started to disrupt the industry, and they were really threatened. The whole industry was threatened. But what saved them 100 years ago was retail. Mail orders started to really pick up, and so technology was introduced to assist that. One of the early technological breakthroughs for UPS was the use of a conveyor system to sort packages that come into a dispatch center or a distribution center, and then parse that out into the different neighborhoods around town that those packages had to be delivered. So they could do it very quickly through automation, and that both the retail sector combined with the technology really allowed that industry to kind of recover. Fast forward 100 years, we have the same issue. It's funny how history repeats itself. We have the internet and email really taking a bite out of local delivery. A lot of the things that used to be delivered were still, letters and things like that. And those are all digital now, as we know. Where we expect to see the revitalization of those through retail, specifically e-commerce. And once again, technology serves to revitalize that industry. There's lots of technology out there that you're all familiar with, mobile technology, location-based services, but truthfully, it's crowdsourcing that's really the technology that's being inserted into this industry to really revitalize it. So I love this demonstration here because that technology that started 100 years ago with the conveyor belt then kind of built up into this behemoth infrastructure of IT around the world, where computer systems decided what was the best way to transport an item. Everything from load optimization to route optimization was incorporated, and companies really became obsessed with letting the computers do everything. And occasionally you get this type of scenario where packages will be shipped all the way around the country when they could have just been delivered a few miles away. And it's interesting because I think crowdsourcing also highlights a little bit of this. Using the web and having people report this type of stuff, I think puts a spotlight on some of the inefficiencies of our traditional systems. One of the themes that I heard today was this notion of combining technology with the human component and really allowing humans to kind of add their resourcefulness to the overall ecosystem. And I definitely think that's true when it comes to same-day delivery. One of the best scenarios I've heard is in China, there's a lot of local delivery, as you can imagine. And some companies, what they do is they actually have people on the subways that are just on the subway all day long, and then they have partners that pass the packages over the turnstiles. So they never get off the subway, they never have to pay another subway fare, they just stay on the subway all day, and you can imagine this kind of relay team type of thing happening. I think that's fascinating because it's really the human component that discovered that opportunity. There was no computer out there that said, well, if we keep the people on the train all the time and have them hand the package over the turnstile, we'll save money. It was the humans that had to figure that out. So this is, this type of thing where we can bring technology and the human resourcefulness together is what really fascinates me. And I didn't mention this in the opening, but we are a New York city-based company, and you see it every day on the streets of New York. So it really fascinates me in terms of how we blend technology and human resourcefulness together. So what are we talking about? We're talking about getting rid of the hub and spoke model, and God forbid, we do anything as drastic as that. But if you think about it, when we talk about local delivery, we're talking about moving something a couple of miles. Why in the world does it go to a distribution center before it then goes to the recipient? And that happens every single day. So we have a lot of double handling, we have a lot of sorting and staging that's totally unnecessary. And so it's, again, utilizing these computer and human networks working in tandem to allow for a point-to-point type of scenario. And the ironic thing is it happens faster and it happens much more affordably than any sort of hub and spoke scenario. Now, I'm not suggesting that we're going to abolish hub and spoke. For long distance delivery, it's still the most efficient way of moving things around, but certainly for local point-to-point, it's much more effective. When we talk about what actually crowdsourced local delivery looks like, it looks like you, it looks like me, it looks like all of us. I think we've kind of mentioned this several times through the presentations today, that it's very interesting to see what the dynamics of the crowd looks like. Here in New York City, the delivery crowd looks very different than it does in the Midwest. It looks very different than it does on the West Coast. But what it's really, what they all have in common is that they're able to leverage technology to make their jobs easier. So this is a question that I get all the time. I wish I could say that I only get it from reporters, but we get it from investors. I get it from my family. Can crowdsourcing really match the scale and efficiency of FedEx, UPS? What are you doing? This is crazy. Well, my answer is it already does. Crowdsourcing already does match it. Just look outside. 500,000 deliveries every single day, point to point in this city. 500,000. I don't know the last time you guys were in a New York cab, probably this morning, and you might have said, where are you going? What are you doing? I fly to the airport or drive to the airport all the time with the cab, and every time they take me a different way. I've seen every back neighborhood of the city you can imagine. And why? It's because each person decides for themselves. Each cab driver decides for themselves the best way to get to the airport, right? That's that human element again. Now, maybe when Google rolls out the driverless car, we'll all have the exact same route, but right now, it's the human creativity that decides, and it's fascinating. There are some days where I get frustrated by that cab because I feel like they made the wrong decision, and then there's some days where I feel like they saved me. They helped me get on that plane on time because they knew a route that I would never have told them about. So this really fascinates me. And just to put the numbers into perspective, 500,000 point-to-point deliveries today in one city. UPS does 14 million deliveries worldwide. Okay, so can we scale to UPS and FedEx? Absolutely. The one thing that's, I don't know, was really highlighted a lot today, but I think it's a critical component of our business, is it's not enough to just have the crowd. Our crowd has to share, okay? And I like this example because, my kids are middle school age, and I'll bet you they can't even tell me what that thing on the left is. They probably know what it's for, but they may not know what the name of it is. But I can fit 486 cards in that, right? But I don't know if you can read down below, but LinkedIn gives me 9.5 million connections, right? Why? Because I share my Rolodex with people, and they share their Rolodex with me. And this actually came to mind just a couple weeks ago. We had a project we wanted to kick off, and we needed a very specialized software developer to do it. It was a very specialized project. And I have a network of business professionals, developers, whatnot, but this project was very specific. So I went out into my network, and long story short, within an hour, I found the perfect developer to do this project, and he's in the UK. I've never met him. In fact, I never met the person who I was introduced to, to meet him, because it was a couple points of separation. But we couldn't do that with the isolated Rolodex, but we can do it with LinkedIn. How does that translate into local delivery? Here in this city, if there's a delivery that goes from the financial district all the way up to Harlem, is it the best thing to do to have one person take it all the way up? With this traffic, probably not. It's very common that we'll see couriers hand off deliveries between Midtown to go the distance so they can stay in one area, right? That's sharing, that's collaborating, that's working together. It's not just that, it's also sharing resources. We have couriers who maybe ride a bike one day, but then they need a cargo bike or they need a vehicle to do larger deliveries. So they collaborate, they share on the platform, they utilize the same capital much more efficiently than if they had a dedicated fleet. Some of our clients pretty much run the gamut. I mean, we service a lot of different industries. Very much, the theme is local. They're doing things locally. We're pretty excited whenever we see somebody new pop in because it's always an industry that we didn't expect. But we've been very fortunate to have a lot of the clients find us. And I think that's a big piece of it, is really getting out there and educating people on the value of using point-to-point delivery. Our biggest competitor is the status quo. It's whatever businesses are doing today. It's very difficult, as all of you know, to switch businesses over. But I do believe that there's a trend, thankfully, because of a lot of the efforts of the people in this room, to point people to the power of the crowd. And we're certainly doing it on the logistics side of things. I wanted to hit on a couple just examples. When we talk about the economics of this, I just went on to one of my favorite companies' websites and did a quick delivery scenario. So 10 pounds, 12 by 12 by 12 box, small box, doesn't weigh too much. And then I got the pricing for it. And of course, the fastest I can get it there is the next day, and that would be about 80 bucks, right? So in our system, that's about a $9 job. It's basically within one zip code, it's Midtown. So the price disparity between us and the big guys is pretty extreme. But again, most businesses don't know that. And when we talk to them, they say, well, it's just easier. UPS comes every day, we just throw it in there. Well, they don't realize that that package is going out to a distribution center and then coming back in, and they're paying for it. I wanted to hit on a specific case study. I talked about some of our clients, but this one, I mentioned just a second ago the 12 by 12 by 12. But what about smaller mail? Can we really be competitive when it comes to something as small as a comic book? Well, one of our partners, Midtown Comics, wanted to do a new campaign where they would allow their clients, their customers, to receive a newly released comic book the same day. I don't know if I heard that there's some Trekkies in here. I don't know if there's a lot of comic book fans, but if you are a comic book fan and a new release comes out, you want it right away. And so Midtown was able to offer the service through us, where we're positioned right there at the checkout, right on their e-commerce site. And again, fortunately, they put us at the top. They even put a logo next to our name. $9.99 for our service. You can get it in 3 to 12 days, and by then all of your friends already read it, but you can get that for $2.99. But we are starting to see that we're pretty competitive with 3 to 5 day shipping. And again, you get it within hours. So what's really fascinating about logistics is that we do have this capacity that exists today. A lot of these larger companies already have some sort of dedicated fleet for shipping. And so what I'm suggesting is that we look at some of these opportunities and try and blend the dedicated fleet with the crowd. We're not necessarily saying the crowd can cover everything overnight, but we do think that over time the crowd will replace your typical fleets that a lot of these larger companies have. So you may have seen the news that came out a few months ago about Walmart testing the idea of having their customers do delivery. We've talked about that type of scenario many times with our clients, and looking at things like Walmart rewards as a way to compensate delivery folks is a great opportunity to reduce your overall costs. AutoZone 1-800-Flowers, if you think about the auto parts stores that have their own dedicated trucks that do the runs out to the garages, or if you think about the flower shops that have dedicated vans that are dropping off flowers all over, they can leverage the crowd to handle the peaks in volume. Of course, flowers, it's highly seasonal. You've got the holiday season that just crushes those florists, and they can tap into the crowd to kind of smooth out some of those peaks. The other industries I won't get into, but we see a significant opportunity in several different sectors. I wanted to finish just by kind of, having you think a little bit more about why this is important to us and probably why crowdsourcing is important to all of you. For us, crowdsourced delivery isn't just better, it's necessary. Think about how much mail you get today versus what you got 5 years ago. The letters have gone down, right? The letter volume, we don't get as many letters anymore. We get a lot of boxes. I'll bet you some of you guys would be embarrassed to say how many times Amazon shows up at your door, but I mean, you get a lot of boxes. I don't know what you do with all the cardboard, but this is really putting a tax on our local infrastructure. And so we've got to do something to figure out how to move things around our cities, especially when they go from a thin little envelope now up to a large box. We can't keep putting the pressure on the local infrastructure. And so tapping into the crowd, leveraging the assets of the crowd is the best way to continue to provide an affordable delivery scenario without really harming the environment. So if you have any questions, we'll be available afterwards. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much. Yeah.
So let me take you back to the 1990s, the late 1990s.
There's always one in the crowd.
There's a dot-com company called Cosmo.
Exactly.
And they had $250 million invested in them, and
Yep.
they went bankrupt after just a few years. Tell us how you're different than Cosmo.
That was a softball lob, and I thank you. So Cosmo was actually a good idea. I mean, it was a decade ahead of its time, and if you think about some of the ways the business model rolled out and why it caused the problem it caused, I mean, it was quite simple. There was no value placed on delivery. And so the scenarios that we all heard about was I could get a Snickers bar delivered for free in an hour, right? I mean, who makes money off of that? So our model is very focused on revitalizing, retooling local delivery to add the value back to local delivery that it deserves and to really work with clients, quite frankly, who appreciate that. So we don't do Snickers deliveries at midnight. The other thing I'll talk about, though, on the Cosmo thing is that, you know, they were ahead of their time because the technology really didn't enable a lot of the things that the technology enables today. And I would say it enables all of your crowdsourcing platforms. Mobile technology, location-based services, those things were just starting to emerge back in the 90s. Now they're very prolific. Everybody has their own computer on their hip, and everybody can determine where they are and where the next job assignment is. So it's very much this notion of crowdsourcing and the technology that enables it that allows us to kind of revisit this model. I don't think we'll pull in $250 million to launch ZipMeds. I don't think we'll need $250 million to launch ZipMeds, but it's a great question because we get it all the time, and it's a very good question. I think a lot of people think that ZipMeds is like ushering in the next dot-com bubble or bust, and we're not at all. So, any other questions? All right, thank you.